I'm Sam Riquezza, Vice President of Business Development for Wellspring Pharma Services. There's really three main sources of relationship problems between clients and CMOs. One's expectations around timelines. Usually there's a lot more that's involved in onboarding a new client with a new project than a lot of people think there would be. For example, depending on the regulatory status of a new product or a product being transferred in, there's a certain amount of work that has to occur that's dictated by FDA or Health Canada or the EMA that's required to be completed before you can successfully transfer a project into a facility. And that timeline is usually underestimated by both sides. Everybody wants to do it quickly, everyone wants to start right away, but there's a lot more that's involved and needs to be thoroughly considered and mapped out before the work is begun. Number two are budgets. Again, with all the work that's required to be done, there's a certain amount of work that's necessary. And again, that work takes time and effort, and that time and effort needs to be properly budgeted for in advance of the project being started. And three are timeline. And the expectations of a relationship around who's to do what, who's responsible for certain key parts of a technical transfer or an onboarding of a project, has to be clearly identified, especially the QA responsibilities. So having a quality agreement in place and also a business relationship agreement in place as to who will be responsible for what tasks or what aspects of the relationship is very important, and it needs to be clearly identified up front. In terms of product specifications, who's responsible for providing the product specifications, how are those going to be communicated, who's responsible for the final approval and release of materials, of batches, of any regulatory materials that are required for a potential submission. Needs to be clearly identified up front. So a quality agreement and a business agreement are both very key in that. The best thing to do is to really have a project management team on both sides, both the client and the contract manufacturer, and have multiple levels represented in both organizations. And that can eventually morph into a relationship management team that can oversee both the business aspects and the operational aspects of the relationship. But if you can set that up, then you get consensus on how a project is to be moved forward, how you begin a project, what expectations are around communication and of responsibilities. So the more different levels within both organizations you can include in that, I think the better you can manage the expectations, because everybody has conflicting or competing, sometimes conflicting, objectives that they need to meet in their own job functions or in terms of their personal objectives. So it's important to have that balance. With multiple levels, you can have a top level executive oversight that looks at it from a strategic standpoint, a middle management aspect that it can make sure that the execution of a project is done and completed on a timely basis, and then the lower levels that are actually executing the tasks and making sure that the work gets done appropriately and properly.